All right, you're very welcome along to our Saturday panel, and it is our now traditional Eve of All-Ireland final Saturday panel with thanks to Benetti Menswear, Ireland's leading menswear provider. And we're joined, as always, by four Benetti Menswear ambassadors. Senan Connell, how are you?
All good, Nathan, yeah.
You're going to have to be the referee here because we're joined by three tough Ulster men. Michael Murphy of Donegal, Conor McManus of Monaghan and Colm Cavanagh of Tyrone. We're live on all our social channels. If you are watching on, you have any questions for the lads at all or any thoughts on tomorrow's final between Dublin and Kerry, do get in touch, leave a comment, and we have a competition as well, a €250 Benetti Menswear outfit for the best question over the next 45 minutes or so. So lads, three of you most definitely would prefer to be somewhere else today. Colm, this time last year you very much were somewhere else. When you think back to 12 months ago and the excitement and the possibilities, what are your memories of the build-up to last year's final?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Suppose I experienced it in 2008 as a young lad. The excitement and everything that comes with it. The whole county raises itself. The flags, the bunting, everything's out, and just everyone's talking about football. You go anywhere, shops, restaurants, everyone's all about football. So, really, really good memories in the lead up to last year. But obviously a lot of bad ones after the game.
It's obviously a very different situation from 10 years previously as well, because that was this generational game as well. It was Tyrone Kerry, it was for the best team of the decade, but also Tyrone were going into that as a team people thought could go and win this, and there was probably an expectation around the county that you would go and win this, having a couple of All-Irelands. Last year you're going in as massive underdogs. Was that a different atmosphere within the squad?
I don't think so. I think obviously there's only myself who probably had been around in 2008, so a lot of young lads there were going in with high expectations, thinking that they could break this Dublin trend and turn them over, and that was the mindset. It was drilled in us leading up to the final that we could do it, and we had the game plan and tactics to do it, and all we had to do was execute. However, Dublin had other plans for us, and had to give credit for that.
Conor, obviously, probably for the first time in half a decade or so, a very disappointing, frustrating season from a Monaghan point of view.
Yeah, very much so, Nathan. I suppose on the back of last year, you were coming into this year, and the plan was to get to get back to where you were in 2018 and try and build on that. And I suppose the key aim for any of the teams involved now at the minute is get to the Super 8s. It's like two separate seasons now. You have your provincial championship. And get to the Super 8s, and then you regroup and you go again and get ready for the Super 8s, and that was very much our intention this year as well. And things just didn't work for us. We had a good start to the league, and then after that everything went south, and it was nearly a case of nearly the harder you tried, the worse things got on you. So
did you know within the camp that
it
just wasn't clicking?
No, it's very hard to put your finger on it. If somebody even asks you now what was it, it's still difficult to come up with a reason as to why. Probably an accumulation of very small things as opposed to one thing that you could put your finger on. So even within the camp and going into the last game that we played, obviously against Armagh, it was a game that you felt you could go and get the thing back on track and try and get a win and put you back on track for the Super 8s, but it just didn't happen. And with 10 or 15 minutes to go in that game, you knew from as far as that out that the game was up for us this year.
It meant you had a bit more time over the summer, an opportunity to do things maybe that you couldn't previously do. What have you been up to?
Not much.
Well, that was a wasted opportunity then.
I have to be honest with you. I suppose this year was different for me because I'm working for myself now. This is the first summer that I had been doing that, so I kind of had to focus on that a wee bit more than if I had been working for somebody else. I probably would have been away, truth been told. So no, there wasn't a massive amount done, and I suppose it's back into club season now at the minute. So it's all guns blazing at the minute now, and I suppose when the thing dies down, you maybe get away towards the end of the year then.
Yeah, and in the last 24 hours, we're hearing that the replacement has been decided for Malachy O'Rourke.
Yeah,
Banty's back.
Looks like it, Nip. Yeah, 10 years on. Banty would have very strong Monaghan links. He's a very passionate Monaghan man, and I think everybody would have seen that. In the last few years, he would have managed Monaghan senior team back in 2007. He actually gave me my debut. Was with us for 3 or 4 years and went away and came back and managed the minor team 2 or 3 years ago. Was over the under-20s last year, so it shows that he's a Monaghan man at heart and he just wants to be involved. And look, he's assembled a fairly strong backroom team there, and I think
that seems to be the piece that most people are talking about. Like Ray Boyne is coming in, who's worked with the Dublin footballer, who's worked with the Tipperary hurlers. That Banty will be the figurehead of this, but very much there's going to be a big backroom team there.
I'd say that's probably the whole model on it is Banty's going to be the facilitator and give the boys the power to do what they do. And look, at hopefully we'll get the ball rolling again. As I say, it's been a very disappointing 2019. We were out in June, which is the earliest we've been finished up nearly ever. So
it's a different Monaghan he's coming into compared to when he went in the first time. There's an expectation there that wasn't.
No doubt about it. When Banty took over Monaghan in 2005, is when he took over. Monaghan were at the bottom of the pile effectively. You were playing in Division 2B. In my first year with Monaghan, we were playing in Leitrim, we were playing in London, we were playing in Wicklow, places like this. And Banty raised the expectations and raised the standards in Monaghan back then. And luckily we've been fit to maintain that. And Malachy Rourke over the last 6 or 7 years has been a breath of fresh air for Monaghan football. And it's now up to the panel of players that's there, and obviously the new management to try and carry that on and see can we build on it a wee bit.
Michael, you were in with us a couple of Saturdays ago. I think it was the week after the defeat to Mayo in the championship exit, and you were still very down at that stage and wondering about what could have been for All-Ireland semi-finals. How long does it take? As you get a bit older, does it become more difficult to accept defeats?
Yeah, definitely. Probably take it less easy to move on. I suppose like the boys here and like Senan who would have played before, your whole year is garnered around trying to get to that September weekend. And when you get knocked out in knockout football, it's just all over overnight. You're meeting fellas, 5 and 6 days a week, and all of a sudden, come a Monday morning, you don't tend to see them again for a number of months. That's the kind of difficult part. And I suppose we felt ourselves this year that there's a good vibe and good feeling within the group, within the squad, and we felt that we could kind of push on. But I suppose that day in Castlebar, it didn't happen for us. Credit to Mayo that day too. But as a young group, I suppose we need to regroup again and get back at it. But
is it difficult for you, from your work point of view? You own a business in Donegal. I guess you're seeing people every single day. There's no escape really. Everyone probably wants to chat to you about what went wrong and what you think's going to happen in the final this week. You just might want to keep the head down.
Yeah, that's it. It's all part of it. And there's days that you're well up for that, and there's days that you want to cocoon yourself and hide away without a doubt. But by and large, that goes to the territory yourself when you're opening up. And I'm sure Conor himself, when he was going into it, that's what you have to deal with, and that's the decision you made when you first went into it. By and large, people are grand. You enjoy it, and I think that's something maybe as you get that wee bit older, you're well able to deal with it a little bit better, and you're a bit more capable to do that. And by and large, you enjoy it, especially when you're winning.
So, Senan, your boys stand on the cusp of history, the first ever to complete the 5 in a row. The 3 lads come from counties that GAA and Gaelic football is all-encompassing, that there's no escape, it's all people talk about. A lot of the discussion around this 5 in a row and the hype is that actually being in Dublin, the players can avoid it somewhat. They can walk down Grafton Street and nobody really recognises them. Like, you've been there, you've been a Dublin inter-county player. Is that the case, or is it actually in those communities that they be a part of, they're very much hearing about the 5 in a row, the history?
There's a big advantage living in Dublin because you can remain anonymous. Such a big population, there's a lot of competition with other sports, and I've watched the lads closely, obviously on the sidelines, and been a few yards away from these lads when they've been playing this year, and to hear the support that comes from the stands at your home venues, and you get a sense that they're real heroes for the whole community. Whereas in Dublin, it's a massive population, and I know that's a different argument in terms of the advantage that we have. But I definitely see at ground level that the players can go to ground for the weeks leading into the match. They can pull them. Michael talked about cocooning yourself away. The players can do that, not a problem here in Dublin a lot. You can rock in and out of work, take a couple of days off leading into the All-Ireland final, avoid wherever you want to avoid. I think all the lads' families would agree that the last thing they'll probably talk about is football and in terms of who's playing and who's not in, because you just don't go there, Nathan, So that's the big advantage that we have here. Plus, the likes of myself and yourself and get slick sort of suits like this, and I have to say that's the best I've ever seen Nathan Murphy look.
Wow.
In his lovely Benetti there now, I have to say. And I suppose and it's great to sit beside, I suppose, 2 of the best footballers forwards that have ever played a game, and we'll call him there as the sweeper. And I was just, when I was looking at these, when you bring that to this game the weekend, there's one thing that Kerry have is they've the most cohesive forward line that Dublin are going to play against. They've a class unit of 6 plus a strong midfield. Maybe their problems lie further back, and we'll get into that again. So Dublin have to manage that, and they managed, let's say, Colm last year as the sweeper. So they know how to find a way in everything that's presented to them. And even if you go with a full blanket defence, they'll still find a way. So they can immobilise the sweeper, they can dismantle a blanket defence. They've good man markers. They mark the likes of Connor and Michael here up front. So now what Kerry are doing is they need to look at the weaknesses. Where can they find weaknesses in that Dublin team? And that's the sort of subplot and the sub stories that we're all going to be looking for the weekend to see if Kerry can stay in this game right up until the last 10 or 15 minutes. You know.
Well, there's our preview done. Thank you very much for coming along, lads. Reminder: we are live on all our social channels on offtheball.com, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you're watching, if you have any questions for the lads, do get in touch. We're here with thanks to Benetti.ie, and we have a €250 voucher for Benetti Menswear, an outfit to give away for the best question, which we'll get to a little bit later on. He mentions the 6 Kerry forwards. One of the big questions, one of the big talking points is about what will be the makeup of those 6 forwards, and will Tommy Walsh start? Talking to Andy Moore and Mossy Quinn during the week, that sort of forwards union felt that it wasn't the best option to start with them, that maybe actually at half-time, when you're expecting that third quarter avalanche to come from Dublin, that's when you put Tommy Walsh in there and you have that out ball. What do you think they should do, Michael, and what do you think they will do?
I suppose the worry is getting to half-time. I suppose that is a big challenge for Kerry now tomorrow, straight away. There's no doubt when Tommy Walsh came in, he made a big impact in the game in terms of being that target man, but I also felt that he released Clifford and Guinea into them pockets of space at the top of the D, and that's where they really started to become very, very dangerous, because they weren't maybe the centre focal point of the attack in that second half against Tyrone. That's where they really came into business.
It's funny how, like, Kerry, for all the tradition and all the wonderfully skillful footballers they have, they're never afraid to go for the big man. Like, you think of the damage that Donaghy has done throughout the years. They're never afraid to go back to basics, to go with the long ball, probably for that reason that, like, Donaghy released Gooch.
Yeah, and I suppose you think of the big man and you think of him as the long ball, but was there that many long balls played on the last day? He just gives you that focal point, and you know he can lead out in front even for a short ball. But I just think he gives that attack a focal point. He gives the attack a bit of depth, and likewise then he gives the likes of your Guinea and your Clifford that bit of space, them pockets of space that they need to do damage on top of the D, left and right, where they're so clinical, and maybe the pressure and the heat doesn't become on them. And you also go through the matchups and you try and go through the Dublin matchups, who to go against them. Is there that perfect fit for potentially for a Tommy Walsh? It's very hard to just see it directly straight away.
Because the sense seems to be that if he doesn't start, that if he comes on, say, on 50 minutes again, maybe they can look at Rory O'Carroll straight away off the bench as a response. Whereas I guess if he starts, it's a very different thing.
Yeah, just talks of maybe Philly McMahon coming in as well. He's done a job on a couple of the bigger men in years gone past. But as Michael is saying there, what the key to Tommy Walsh is that it's not actually the high ball he wins all the time. He's very good out in front. And Kieran Donaghy made a great point in the semi-final in studio when we were covering again the last day. He said the Twin Towers in 2009, it wasn't Twin Towers at all. It was the high ball into Donaghy, and Walsh won everything out in front, and he has soft hands. And what he did against Tyrone is he took the heat off the 2 lads on either side, but he also unlocked the pace of Stephen O'Brien, who could come bombing on the balls, and we saw it as well. So when as Michael just said there, he just took the demands off the 2 lads around him who came to centre point. So Dublin are going to have to be careful, I think, if the game is in the melting pot.
I know that Michael has said that he's not just there for the high ball, but Dublin have to guard against that, because when Tommy came on against us, we were probably a wee bit in disarray, and I ended up going back probably trying to mark him for a period of time, because we hadn't anyone probably big enough if they did start to pepper us with long ball in. And that caused a problem in itself. I think Dublin will have that issue where, yes, you Philly McMahon and boys, you could probably have dealt with big men before, but like Tommy Walsh is able to do both, so he will come out and win the ball, and if Kerry need that long ball in, he's a serious ball winner, serious size, serious strength. They may have to sacrifice, Dublin may have to sacrifice a McCarthy back onto him to deal with him, which again takes away from Dublin. Going for, McCarthy obviously is a driving force for Dublin and opens up a lot of gaps for them down the centre and that. So
I think the biggest thing that the boys have covered it there, like about Tommy Walsh and his strengths and everything he brings to the game. He's going to give them that bit of depth, and he's going to release the 2 boys. From a Kerry point of view, why would you wait to half time to do that? This is probably the greatest team that's maybe ever played. There's no point in giving them 35, 40 minutes and then bringing them in. Like, you look at what Mayo done, and to be fair to Mayo, they did everything right in that first half against Dublin. Andy Moore was warming up at the start of the second half. I was just standing watching him warming up. Within 10 minutes, Andy Moore might as well have sat back down. It was game over, and Andy Moore had no impact on the game at all. And if Kerry take the same approach, Tommy Walsh could be null and void by 40 minutes.
What you talk about there, the different aspects to his game, and again, I think back to maybe Donaghy in that drawn game against Mayo in 2014 when he's just come back from the injury, and then in the first game his impact really was dropping deep and getting involved and releasing those around him. And the debate then is, well, do you need somebody quick to just get out in front of him, or do you need the big man who, because there is always that fallback option? By starting him then, do you create that sort of confusion in the Dublin defence of, is Jim Gavin on the sideline going, all right, we know I have man markers who, if he does just drop deep, we have a sweeper there who can block that, but if they just decide to use that option in route one, do we have a full-back who can actually counter that?
I think the one little drawback on it is, so far as, like, Tommy Walsh hadn't started up until then, you know, can you hang your hat on an All-Ireland and something happening
On a first championship start in 10 years?
For 20 minutes on a semi, maybe not. And the other flip side is Dublin will have spoken for the last 3 weeks. They'll have their plan in place. If Tommy Walsh says, these are the changes we're making, they'll be comfortable in doing that. The element of surprise will be kind of gone, whether he comes on at the start or whether he comes on, you know, at half-time, the element of surprise is going. So, again, we're looking down the line, what different can something bring, what different something else can Kerry bring, you know, and I think it's going to be that whole cohesive unit as a forward six, trying to break it down rather than any one individual or one individual tactic, because for a course of 70 minutes, to get at Dublin, to get the necessary scores on the board against Dublin, to have one attacking tactic isn't going to be enough, you know. So you're going to have to have the likes of Stephen O'Brien. You're going to have to be getting scores coming from defence a hell of a lot more, the likes of Paul Murphy's, and you're just going to have another couple of attacking outlets rather than that just potential one bombardment, you know, because Dublin will have planned for that now over the last number of weeks.
I guess then, and there is if they do decide to start Tommy Walsh, there is also that mental risk of 10 minutes in, Dublin are totally on top of him. And you're looking around and this hasn't worked. What do you do then?
It's a massive call. It's the plan B, isn't it, there? So for me, it has to be plan B all day. And as Michael has said, it has to be treated with a harsh dose of reality. He hasn't started in Croke Park since 2009. He had a great game in Tralee against Dublin in the league. And obviously he came on, he turned that game on its head. But this is a different animal altogether. It's an All-Ireland final, which the lads have played in the biggest games that are there. Croke Park, I think it's a big risk to start him. I think the game has to be a little bit open. And you'd expect, if Tommy Walsh goes warming up, watch the Dublin dugout, because you're going to see a Finney McMahon or Rory Carroll going the other direction. But look, he's only one of an eight. I'm sure you're going to get there, and I don't want to be pointing you where you want to go, and we can swap seats if you want.
No, it's fine, yeah, you take over.
But I mean, for me, that's grand at Tommy Walsh. And I think speed is at the heart of everything Kerry do, but they need horsepower. And Tommy Walsh and David Moran give the horsepower. And I think the next biggest, most important guy is David Moran in the middle of the park, because for me, it's all about that middle third. Whoever wins that middle third in the air or on the ground is going to win this game, because the Kerry backs, for me, they attack with menace and they're really good with the ball in hand. But if they lose ground at midfield, I think they're vulnerable in defence. So we saw and you were there, Nathan, we saw what Kerry did to Mayo. They took a wrecking ball to Mayo's, in the Super 8s, to Mayo's tactics. They just dominated them at midfield. And all of a sudden, when they were dominating midfield, they unlocked the forward unit, that cohesive unit that Michael talked about, because they had primary possession. All of a sudden, there was runners coming from everywhere. If they lose midfield the weekend, then they could be under pressure or could be vulnerable in defence. And there's so many layers to this as well. That brings in Shane Ryan. What does he do? Does he go short? Does he go long? You know.
Has anyone dominated Dublin's midfield?
This man here is done in 2014 anyway, that's for sure. And there, Michael Murphy, yeah.
I suppose it depends what you're thinking. Are you thinking about midfield as regards the kick-out option, or are you thinking about midfield in general open play? You know, without trying to be too dour about things, listen, Cluxton's not going to lose any more than 3 kick-outs tomorrow.
Cluxton hasn't lost a single short kick-out all season. But when you go long, it's 50-50. Now, it is as well for Kerry. So presumably then you have to push up on him, force him long, and hope that somehow you turn that 50-50 into a 60-40 in your favour.
Yeah, and he's still going to get a certain percentage of the short kick-outs, so he's not going to go long for any more than you would imagine, you know, 5-6 kick-outs a half. You know, everything else is going to be short. They're going to get possession. They play a very careful brand of football, then bringing that ball forward from attack. So I think it's supposed to be a big part of Kerry's plan over the last number of weeks would have to be, listen, Dublin are going to get this possession from the kick-out. We'll try our best to stop it, definitely, and force them long. They're going to get possession of the kick-out. How do we stop them getting the ball forward? And that's going to be the big
we
problem.
tried that last year, like in the final, like we talked weeks and weeks about trying to stop Cluxton, like, you know, everyone was shouting around the media, look, if you stop Cluxton, it goes a long way to beating Dublin. But as Michael rightly said there, you can plan and plan and plan, but he still seems to have that, you know, that accuracy.
And how deflating is that when you're on the pitch and
you're on the
spend
back
so
foot
much
straight
time?
away, and especially if if you're in the back foot and Dublin have the ball, you know, they're a very powerful force. So like we planned for it, and it didn't work out on the day. I'm not sure of the stats.
There was even stages in the first half where you did seem to have Cluxton rattled for a period of time. There was 1 or 2 kick-outs out over the sideline, and you thought, just Tyrone are doing a perfect job, but Cluxton being Cluxton, he just doesn't panic and he just gets everything back on
The
track
other thing
again.
is you're pushed up at that stage, so you're trying to either go zonal or go man to man to try and stifle that. And if they get a ball, if Cluxton gets his kick out the 45-metre line, you know, we're all on the back foot because they've taken out probably 6, 7, 8 of Tyrone players there, and you know there's direct ball in the Dublin forward line, and you know it's very, very difficult when to try and stop them when they're one-on-one up front. You know they're lethal, like the serious forwards there to do damage.
At any stage last year, and Tyrone made a good start in last year's final, did you think, okay, Dublin are a bit rattled here?
I did. I thought we were on top, and I think it was 5-1, and I thought, look, we're going really well here. But the thing about Dublin and what really impressed me when looking back at that game is most teams need half time to come to switch a game plan or to switch something. Dublin seemed to have planned for every single scenario. So
And do you think that was coming from the sideline or from the players on the
players
pitch?
in the field, I think it was we were 5-1 up, and we had opportunities. I think two or three had shots and nothing. But Dublin had got their men back at that stage. They recognised that they were in, you know, Tyrone had started better on them, and literally then they sucked us in. We were taking awkward shots from awkward angles, and then obviously they hit us for 2-3 or 2-4 in a space of 10 minutes, and the game was more or less over at that stage. So they were able to flip that after 10 or 15 minutes. You look even at this year with Dublin and Kerry, you know, we were on top up to half time. You know, they weren't able to change it mid at the start of first half. So that's the big thing that Dublin have advantage wise. I think they've planned for every scenario. They know, a bit like the Tommy Walsh thing, they know if he's on what they're going to do. If they're 5 down, they know what to do. If they're 5 up, they know what to do. You know, they've just got everything covered in that regard. It's very hard to plan against that.
You could see that even in the Tyrone or the Mayo Dublin game in the semi-final. You know, Mayo had Dublin well rattled. Like James McCarthy was dispossessed twice. You don't ever see that happening.
Jack
McCaffrey
zone
was
as well,
the ball taken off him. You don't see that happen. But what Dublin did was they retreated. At times Dublin had 15 men behind the ball. They sucked up Mayo's pressure. They absorbed what Mayo had to give, and then in the second half they just.
That does the strength, I feel, of the Dublin team is, you know, they're going to score. You know what they're going to score.
When they have their hot
18
streak,
points,
they'll
25.
score. But when you have your hot streak, they'll contain you.
What they're able to do is contain you. They're able to dispossess you. You kick shots, you kick bad wides. You spoke about you were 5-1 up, a couple of bad wides that you maybe hit. We've been there before. You're on the front foot with the ball. You feel that there's openings. You push forward. You end up getting turned over, and that they're just able to defensively better match you than what other
They're
teams
nearly
do.
they nearly just go into that, you know, as you say, containment mode where they don't want to concede goals. So we were 5-1 up or whatever, and I remember looking up at one stage and they just had everybody in their centre zone. So they were more or less saying, you aren't getting a goal, you can shoot from the corner flags all day. And you know that meant that Dublin were never too far behind, and then obviously whenever they get their purple patch, they punish you.
Do you know what? I think that what they have is, and probably our team certainly didn't have it, that Dublin team, why we didn't win with this team, is when they've the self-assurance that the storm will pass, and they're going to unleash their own storm, and it's about how the opposition will actually deal with that. And I suppose in that game, the last in the Mayo, in the first half, it was like as if they went in at half time and they were disgusted with themselves. You know what I mean? And what reflected that to me was that there was no cosmetic surgery at all at half time. There was no changes made. They just came out collectively a different team, and that's a very hard thing to do. Normally, you see 1 or 2 players that raise their game, but collectively they just ratcheted up the intensity and they ruthlessly dismissed Mayo. Like their greatest rivals for 10 years were just dismissed in a 12-minute storm, as I mentioned before. And you know, and I think what Dublin have is they've the game intelligence and probably where they're going to win the weekend. They've a load of different types of footballers. They play with their head. They're not looking at the line. It really is, and I know Jim keeps saying this, but it really is ran by the players. Like he gives the framework and the players operate within it. So they make the decision. They solve the riddle on the park. You know,
Who are the players, when you're talking about that then, that Dublin are able to make those changes on the pitch? Who are the players that are particularly vocal, that are making those decisions?
Kieran Kilkenny is central to a lot of what they do. You know, it's as if he's playing set plays within the plays. You know, anytime Kieran Kilkenny, like you'll see him, Dublin are attacking towards Canal End, for example. Kieran Kilkenny's running towards the ball with his back to the goals to get the ball, and everybody sets up from there. Like when he has the ball, it's nearly as if it's a set play and players know where to go. He's soloing around in circles and he's going over and back, but it's not, you know, there's more to it than that. You know, Dublin are getting themselves set up, and when he's on the ball, it's nearly as if everybody knows where to be and where we're going next with this. And they're playing set plays within a play nearly.
Charlie Cooper as well. Sorry, Mike.
And that's something they've probably changed big time in the last 2 years, where I suppose the Dublin teams that initially started the quest for 5 in a row, very flamboyant, very attacking, very quick transitions up the field. Now it's a much more assured position. Let's work it up the field. Let's get it past that midfield area where they could maybe suffer a bombardment. Get it up to the 45.
Less risky?
Less risky, less flamboyant, but a hell of a lot more efficient. They're all comfortable in doing it. They all know their positions. They're playing with each other now for 3, 4, 5 years. They've built up that relationship. They understand what each player can do and cannot do. They've bought into it, and as I say, they're a hell of a lot more efficient.
It's really like it's a basketball NFL type setup where they've obviously maybe a bit too far-fetched of having playbooks of knowing where Conor talked about Kieran Kilkenny getting the ball, and he literally slows it up, and then boys start moving around him. It literally is nearly like a basketball setup where the man's calling the play and
they're just waiting for the
moving
trigger
and switching, and they're never panicked and they're never rushed, and that's I suppose that's how it unlocked us when we obviously went very, very defensive at times against Dublin, and we thought, when I was took out of the game completely in the last 2 or 3 times I played Dublin. As a sweeper, I was I could maybe taken off 1 or 2 of the games. They just know how to get round you, and again, that comes from their set plays.
They bump. They never. The forward unit, even when they're playing against a blanket defence, they're never standing still. You watch that red zone in front of the goal. They're just crossing the whole time. They bump each other around the place, so there's always a constant move. So if one player moves into a zone, he bumps that player, bumps someone else. So there's a constant movement off the ball. This is going on, and they'll occupy a sweeper. That's one thing that they have, and I know from dealing with the Dublin players in my own club, they'll never leave the sweeper standing there. They'll occupy him, come across his line, bump him, 2-on-1, all that sort of stuff. So they've all these little things done, Nathan.
And when you watch back the video of those games where they meant that your role was sort of null and void, did you look back and go, we could have changed something, we could have done something different here?
Possibly. I remember watching it back thinking I could have pushed out a wee bit more, but then you were leaving space and behind in front of the goals where you might have had Dean Rock or someone operating in around, and against a lot of teams you probably could have done that because they mightn't have had the players to find them passes into the full forward line, and Dublin do, unfortunately. So if I had pushed out, they would have got in behind. So I would have had to take a lot of work to try and, because as Senan said, they're moving all the time. They're running in front of you. They're running behind you. You don't know who to be going to. You don't know who to be marking. They play a lot of width, so they play it down the wing a lot. And if you go out, then the centre's free and the men coming through. They have a lot of different scenarios they have that it's very, very hard.
It's like 6 Bernard Brogans, it feels like, in terms of movement.
From 5 to 15, you essentially have to man mark them. You have to man mark Jack McCaffrey, James McCarthy, John Small, Michael Dyer McCauley, Fenton, and then the top 6. So automatically they've 1v1s all over the pitch because you can't really step off any one of them from 5 to 15 because they have the ability to kick scores, they have the ability to do damage going forward. So automatically if you go to the wing, if a James McCarthy goes to the wing or if a Jack McCaffrey goes to the wing, you essentially have to follow them. You're not going to leave them in 20 yards of space there. So they're creating 1v1s all over the pitch. And once they create 1v1s, it's one slip. You see McConaughey.
There's 10 of those type of players. You look at the 3 teams you're involved in, you try and take Yee out of the game and maybe 1 or 2 others. They're the players you focus on. You're hoping that you win 10 battles, which is always unlikely.
The strength is how cohesive the whole unit is. There was an awful lot talked about one of the scores Paul Mannion kicked the last day against Mayo. It was out on the sideline. You don't see Dublin kicking them scores. They're all well capable of doing it, there's no doubt, but they never take them on because everything is so structured and so well worked. All their scores come from the top of the D, 25, 30 yards out, popping the ball over the bar. So it's the strength that they have in knowing that where everybody's moving, each other's movements, and working the ball to a position where it's a tap over score rather than a really quality score from out on the sideline. They don't take them shots on.
Do you know what? They can change emphasis, and they did that in the second half the last day. Colm referenced the fact that James McCarthy, their ball was stripped off them in that sort of red zone. Mayo had their running line sussed and spooked. But in the second half, they started kicking ball into O'Callaghan. They recognised there was a pocket of space, so they can change emphasis just midstream, and then the game just turns in an instant. So I suppose if you're playing against them, you can't switch off for a second because tactically they're nearly multi-dimensional up front the way they can go at it.
Well, again, I guess a lot of that was down to the movement because you look at Colm Boyle and he was playing that sweeper role, and you look at the long ball in, every time he was distracted by the movement of one of the other forwards, suddenly gets caught out of position, and they find themselves in that perfect one-on-one scenario. And with Lee Keegan on the show during the week, he was saying it's the first time he's ever conceded a goal against the player he's man-marked in championship football. His head was spinning from the brilliance of Conor O'Callaghan.
As a sweeper point of view, they have that drag ball in, the ball winners, and once O'Callaghan or whoever wins the ball inside, the sweeper's in the back foot because they have men, they've nearly programmed, but men are coming running, there's 2 or 3 running, so all he's doing, if he doesn't take his man on, the ball's shipped out, and as a sweeper you're flat-footed trying to defend these guys. And I remember getting sidestepped twice last year in the final, one by Brian Howard and one could have been O'Callaghan, and we were just going, this is going to be very, very difficult to stop.
As a sweeper, who do you focus on? Like normally most teams would have one player you'd have primarily focus on, and you'd sweep in front of him. But Colin Boyle's trying to stop Conor O'Callaghan, he's trying to stop Paul Mannion, he's trying to stop Kilkenny. Like, where do you go? Like, there's too many strengths there.
It is our traditional Eve of All-Ireland final Saturday panel with thanks to Benetti Menswear, Ireland's leading menswear provider. Do leave a comment and we will pick a winner for a €250 Benetti Menswear outfit a little bit later. We're joined by Senan Connell, by Conor McManus, Michael Murphy and Colm Cavanagh if you have any questions for the lads. What you're talking about there is a sweeper who you focus on, and in terms of man marking, going back to the finals of 2016 and 2017 and when Lee Keegan did a job on Kieran Kilkenny, is that where Dublin have continued to evolve, that actually Mayo could do that, and if you stopped Kilkenny, you stopped a huge amount of what Dublin were trying to do, that actually 2 years on, the return of Mannion, the emergence of Conor O'Callaghan, like Brown Howard, who barely gets mentioned for his brilliance all year.
It's the early to mid-20s guys that are driving around.
That's the biggest strength now. Like, when at the start of this 5-in-a-row team, you had Alan Brogan, you had Dermot Connolly, Paul Flynn, Bernard Brogan, Kevin McManus and Owen O'Gara. And none of them boys are playing this weekend.
They might get a sub-jersey.
All the players in the starting forward line are all under 25.
And I know it's difficult for you to talk about it because you're still current players, but that must frighten the life out of you.
Just glad we're not defenders.
You're not flying the Michael Murphy.
You're not defenders, but in terms of what you want to achieve in your careers, because everybody felt that team, and certainly the narrative was this is a once-in-a-generation Dublin team. And even we're picking best Dublin teams of the last 10 or 15 years. Like now you're looking, another couple of years, will it be Bernard Brogan or Paul Mannion or Conor O'Callaghan will be in that team? That actually they have regenerated, and actually this new generation are possibly even better.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And that's the scary to see. We can speak about it, but they're up there to be got at, and it's up to the rest of us all to catch up and play a brand of football that we feel that can beat them. They've obviously kind of found a way around the blanket defence. They're obviously very, very dangerous in the 1v1 scenarios. But I suppose to pick up on something, Kieran Kilkenny was a huge part of the playmaking, I suppose, over the last two to 3 years. I think he's probably playing a hell of a lot closer to goal this year. Niall Scully, Brian Howard has taken up that deeper playmaking role, so they're constantly evolving the players and challenging the players. And I suppose if you think there's anything that would creep in if they were getting bored or tired, I suppose Jim Gavin, is trying to challenge them a different way. They're looking at Kieran Kilkenny a bit closer to goal, and as I say, Brian Howard, I think, is an absolute class act. Like, I heard you on about the sidestep, like, to see it up close, like, I mean, it's some...
And he can drop in, Michael, he's dropped in as a sweeper sometimes, so he can play a variety of roles, can't he?
He has the ability, but I just noticed big time there dropping that deeper role to try and play make a hell of a lot more now than once before where it was Kieran Kilkenny,
We obviously have two of the finest forwards in the country here.
Thanks, Nick.
And Senan, you've turned up as well. Looking well. One of the best dressed former forwards in the country is your official title now. Of that Dublin forward line, who's your pick? Which of them do you look at and go,
that's a hard one.
He's something I can learn something of. He's the one I really enjoy watching.
To me, Howard at the moment, I absolutely love watching him, Just think he has an all-round ability. He has the ability to kick, he has the ability to carry, he has the ability to do it all, rounded now, definitely ability.
I think Mannion in the last year or 2 years has morphed into probably the best forward in the country at the minute. Inside forward, he's got power, he's got pace, he's kicking off both feet, scores off both feet.
Two scores in the semi-final against Mayo from either wing.
Last year, they were highlighting him in different TV shows about his work rate and his tackling, and he's the best tackler Dublin had. So he's put another layer onto his game. His finishing is stepped up really. Like a couple of years ago, Mannion wasn't nailing them scores as consistently now, but anytime he gets the ball, you're nearly expecting to see the white flag raised, and I think he's really lifted his game in the last 12 or 18 months.
He's the ultimate forward, I think, really, because he has it onto his game, and really, realistically, if that was a team that, let's say, that I played in 10 years ago, he would be just the flashy inside forward. And really, that's the way your forwards were, inside forwards. But now he has added all layers, and the lads haven't even mentioned Conor O'Callaghan. Then for me, he was a prolific underage scorer, and he's just continued that in. Remember, he was out centre forward in games, I think, against their own years on. Now he's just operating inside as well. So,
well, the change in Conor O'Callaghan physically this year as well, to be able to go and bully Lee Keegan like that is
his
pretty
ball
frightening.
ability's frightening. Like, he took a ball this year.
Roscommon, wasn't it?
It was Roscommon, and I thought his leg was broke. He had an unbelievable take, and he's been doing that all year. I say he's not that tall, but he can win ball, and that's what gives Dublin, I think, a platform. If you have that man in there and you can take high ball, low ball, he adds something. He adds that X factor for me, I think.
They're talking like the lads that they play with brilliant forwards. You know, we're focusing on Dublin. Like when Mike gets ball, he's Paddy McBearty inside. You know what I mean? McConnor, the lads that are around him, and certainly with Tyrone, we see the same. Like we focus on Dublin just because they're up there now at the moment. But I think we're in an age of brilliant forwards at the moment there too. And do you know what's great is that we've gone away from the blanket defence. That it's the key to unlock a blanket defence has now been found. So teams are now unlocking the greatness, I suppose, of the Michaels and the Connors and you know, as forwards, you know.
Mayo got to 116 against them a couple of years ago. Andy Moore was talking about that magic 20-point mark that people feel you need to get to, but you still wouldn't be surprised if Dublin get to 26, 30 points tomorrow. But like that Kerry forward line of O'Brien, O'Shea can easily kick, and Dublin haven't given away frees is the other problem here. I think it's 13 scoreable frees in their 4 games, but if Sean O'Shea gets that chance to add 6 or 7 frees, and Clifford and Gainey, it's just that's the X factor for Kerry tomorrow.
Yeah, and if any forward line has the ability to click and show like in their movement. I know we played against Kerry earlier on in the Super 8s and we analysed them up in that, especially their game against Mayo and the game down in Killarney, and we've got a view from behind the goals. Their movement to the forward line is spectacular. You know, it is really, really good. It's very, very hot, and I tell you, their ability to execute the skills of the game with the dink passes and the angled runs is very, very good. So, listen, big games. Kerry will be up the road today. They're sitting in the hotel. They'll all be gunning for it. They'll be looking forward to it. They won't be listening to what we have to say in terms of the strength of Dublin. You know. And
good afternoon to all the Kerry players tuned in this morning.
But. I say that's 6. Like we're after speaking away about the Dublin 6, and they are an unbelievable group of players. The Kerry 6 and forwards, you know, up front is equally as good and mad hungry in an All-Ireland final day to go out and prove themselves, especially after hearing what they've heard for the last 3 weeks, no doubt.
No, the Kerry forward line, like, and their biggest strength is every time a forward, particularly from David Moore and going forward from 8 to 15, every man wants to kick the ball. Every man, the first thing he looks for is to move the ball by foot, and the Kerry inside line know that, and they're always on the move, they're always on the go, they're moving here and there, and it's a wee 20-yard, 30-yard pop pass, and Kerry are excellent at it, you know, and they're very good at releasing a half forward off the full forward line. The likes of, you know, Donncha Walsh over the last 7 or 8 years was unbelievable at coming off the forward line, and that has instilled Stephen O'Brien's doing what he was doing, you know, for the last number of years as well, and they have an ability just to link the play in their forward line, and if they get going, it'll be very hard to stop that.
So again, that feeds into going with Tommy Walsh, because the importance of getting out in front of that Dublin full-back line, of winning that primary possession and bringing the other players in.
I don't know. No, Clifford and Gainey win their own ball there. It depends with them. No, I think they're ball winners as well as everyone else. That forward line, they don't rely on Tommy Walsh. And if you can throw into the mix, what's this come out of Dublin this year is the hard running and taking them on in open combat. I think it's the only way. I think to win this game is to go at them and do what Cork did. Just go at them, you know, but for more than 60 minutes, you know.
David Moran's got a massive influence, obviously, in the game. Like, when we were analysing Kerry, I suppose this year, you know, every game that you watch of him or every clip you watch of him, he gets the ball, he looks up, he wants to kick it, whether it's on or not. He wants to kick it, and it'll be interesting to see whether Dublin obviously they recognise that is the case, and whether they try and put a Macaulay on him to try and stifle his game, because he'll have a massive impact, obviously, from a midfield in terms of ball winning, but like, he makes him tick. He gets the ball, he plays, his kick passing's brilliant from both feet. So it'll be interesting to see whether Dublin sort of recognise and try and stifle him a bit.
Message in from Conor Nally. What about the various matchups? Philly to mark Sean O'Shea?
No, I'd say John Small might follow him around the place. I just get that feeling he mightn't, but I just get that impression that they're going to focus on himself there out in that unit.
Yeah, I would suspect probably John Small to flick there. I think from a Kerry point of view, I would definitely be trying to get O'Brien onto McCaffrey. I wouldn't be letting Dublin do what they do. Like, I suppose Mayo
so put McCaffrey on the back foot.
Try to really put him on the back foot. Listen, is that possible? I think with this Dublin team, as I say, every man has a job. So O'Brien is going to have a job of tracking somebody. So he will have to track McCaffrey. But let's try and put him in the back front defensively and see what they can do. Kind of a la, I suppose, Paddy Durkin. You know what they try to do. You know.
A lot of the doubts about the Kerry defence are still probably from that semi-final against Mayo a couple of years ago, and Peter Keane has come in and very much at the start of the league went with a very defensive and didn't go down probably particularly well in Kerry, but there's still more of an element of defence than has been there traditionally with a Kerry team. Do you think, have you seen an improvement in Kerry defensively over the last couple of years?
I think probably the semi-final against Tyrone probably told the story in that. Kerry, by their nature, probably don't do defensive systems and structures overly well. They probably deployed Paul Murphy as a sweeper there the last day, and Paul Murphy's one of the best players in the country, but he looked lost doing that, playing that role. You know, he was trying to be a sweeper and he was too far away. He wasn't having any impact when Kerry went and played their own game in the second half and just went toe to toe with Tyrone. That's how they got themselves back into the game. But and that's again, do Kerry take that approach tomorrow? Do they play a sweeper? Do they give Dublin every possession from their own kick-outs? This is the things that they are going to have to get right over the next 24 hours, because
I think Tyrone, we had a lot of joy, especially in the first half, and we probably should have been further in front, in my opinion. You know, Callum McShane and Matty and stuff were having joy and getting that kick pass in, and we were causing them all sorts of problems. So, you know, Dublin, I spoke about their forward line being how hot they are. So, Paul Murphy, yes, probably didn't have the best outing as a sweeper, but I fear that if they deploy a man-on-man approach, they're asking for trouble. Like.
Yeah, I shudder to think if those open spaces are in front of the Dublin full forward and what they could do, because O'Callaghan and Manny will just eyeball you, take you on one-on-one, and they're thinking goal. And I think, with all respect to Colm McShane and Matty Donnelly, class players inside, they're probably a bit different maybe to Stevie O'Neill or an Owen Mulligan or a Peter Canavan or Connor inside. When they get the ball first one, they're probably thinking goal. Colm McShane and Matty Donnelly maybe thinking score. So that's the difference. If Conor Callan gets the ball one-on-one, he's going to, and he's isolated there, he's going to be thinking goal, Nathan, and that's the difference. So the conundrum for Kerry is that they have to trouble the scoreboard at one end and not leave the gate open at the other end, you know.
Every All-Ireland final is special, but this is one that people could be talking about for the next 50 years if Dublin go on and complete the 5 in a row. Do any of you think that the pressure on Dublin is a factor, that 5 in a row will enter their heads at any stage? Everybody shakes their head.
There's just nothing to point towards that. The whole human instinct, I would think that, but there's no evidence to point towards that. You know, maybe that may.
Were you more nervous in an All-Ireland final than other games you played?
I wouldn't. Listen, probably slightly, but I couldn't say anything more drastically more nervous. You know, you're just in a routine, you're in a bubble. That's just probably your 7th, 8th game of the season already. You're used to the same routine over and over again. Yes, probably the house is packed and it is an All-Ireland final. You have a parade to deal with, but this Dublin team have dealt with many parades and many All-Ireland finals, and at this stage there's just nothing to point that they're going to feel the nerves, they're going to feel the heat.
No, they seem to be just so well managed and so well grounded, and a lot of that obviously is down to Jim Gavin, and you would suspect as long as he stays, this Dublin team aren't gonna blink at all. You know, that they're so well coached, they're so well drilled, and they're so well grounded that it doesn't seem to affect them. Like, they're going into this is their 5th All-Ireland final in a row. They're going for 5 wins in a row. As Michael says, there's nothing to suspect any reason why they'd blink now as opposed to before now.
I don't know.
I agree with it. I agree with the lads. There's nothing more really to add there. I think that, you know, Michael said, talked about a bubble. You be in that bubble, you go to your trainings as regular nights, and they say there could be flags and everything, a wee bit more buzz around the place and whatnot, but you don't tend to, if you're looking from a personal point of view, you don't read papers, you don't watch too much, because you just keep your focus and go about your business. I
was brought up in the other great Benetti ambassador, Tomás O'Shea's down there as well. Now, when I was brought up in an era when Kerry always, no matter when you were favourites to go in, Kerry just came and played. They saw the Dublin jersey and they ratcheted up the intensity. So I still have that in me, that the fear.
Every time you see him,
I know we do, yeah. But that's something that's there. But you have to agree with the lads on the other side of things, is that Jim Gavin has developed a culture of no emotion. You know, whether they score a goal, concede a goal, they're deadpan. And
I hope he shows some emotion tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
Just for everybody else. Listen, and you can't.
Yeah.
He can act whatever way he wants, and listen, we all know what his profession is and the way he's probably hardwired not to show emotion for good or bad.
Yeah.
But just for everybody else who plays Gaelic football, to show that it means something.
I know, yeah. I've often thought about that. Like even O'Callaghan's goal in the All-Ireland final against Tyrone, the All-Ireland semi-final against Tyrone a couple of years ago. If that had been me, I would have had the jersey off, swinging around in front of the hill. But these fellas, like the modern, within reason, but I'm probably not. No, but the lads are coming out and they're pointing. You know what I mean? It's just like that's done next, and I think that they just have clarity of thought in the the big plays. So and they they grabbed the big plays. So Conor Callan got a chance to seize the big plays against Mayo, and he took them and he put them in the back of the net. And maybe that's just the difference. And all that is I think, experience. Kerry are going to have it. I think the age of Mayo being the genuine, real rivals is gone, and maybe Kerry are emerging. And you see Donegal's youthful team, a lot of injuries that day. You were in Castlebar again. You saw that Mayo, the Donegal team with a lot of injuries. So we're seeing the emergence of new teams to compete with Dublin. But maybe just, Aidan, you were asking the question about the weekend. Maybe Dublin are just have too much experience and big game experience and big day experience. But history will tell you that Kerry can do anything.
If it wasn't Kerry, though, you'd probably be expecting Dublin to win this game by 8 to 10 points.
Yeah, the spread of 6, and if it wasn't, yeah, I'd agree with you there, Nathan. But and I answered it already. It's still Kerry, you know, and the brilliance of Kerry is what they can bring to it and the fanfare. And plus, it's a bit unpalatable for them to see Dublin do the 5 in a row and just consign their 2 4. They've 2 4 in a row winning teams as well. You know, consign that to history if this 5 in a row happens. You know, and I did a bit with Mikey Shee yesterday in Justin Crowe Park, and like, he's royalty. You know, these fellas, Tomas, they're like, these fellas are going to be royalty as well. And just to see them in the flesh is just something brilliant. And Dublin want to leave a different legacy behind, but Kerry, is it written in the stars? You know, the team that's going to take it away from them is the team that was denied it themselves.
Yeah. Dublin seem to blow this written in the stars stuff, as a Mayo man I know well, out of the water very quickly. We're here with thanks to Benetti Menswear, Ireland's leading menswear provider. We have 4 Benetti Menswear ambassadors with us. It's time to get your predictions. I have a feeling I know which way this is going to go before we start, but Colm, what do you see happening?
To be honest, I don't see anything other than a Dublin win. 4 to 5 points. I think they've just talked about experience. They just have it. They have everything all around the pitch. They have the experience. You know, Kerry will come in. You know, I think they'll have a go at it, and some that might get them so far. But for Kerry to be still, they need to be in the game in the last 5 minutes. But I just think Dublin's just got too much of an edge to get over the line and to do it.
Will you bring yourself to go to the game?
I don't think I will. I think I'll have to sit at home as a spectator and watch it, and better for analysis purposes.
Yeah.
He's watching the Coronation Street omnibus.
And will you watch it North Ear Sky?
No comment.
Conor, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, it's going to go along them lines. The only thing you would say about Dublin, you know, for how dominant they've been, they haven't walked away with any of the finals in the last number of years. Like they beat Mayo by marginally by a couple of points over a couple of years. Even Tyrone last year, they were well ahead at stages in that second half, but Tyrone managed to get back and close the gap down to 4 or 5 points. So you would suggest that maybe something similar along them lines to tomorrow. Kerry will have their purple patch, but we all know what Dublin can do in theirs, and you know, Dublin have the capacity to beat you in 10-15 minutes, and it's just when that happens, I suppose. But I do expect Dublin by 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, and I picked up on a point there, Conor. I'd say that the Dublin do play finals slightly differently, I feel. They go to lockdown. They try and eradicate the strengths of that position on the ball first, get that there done, and then go and try and play the game. And I do feel that that's something that they tend to do in finals. So, as I say, Kerry will get a lot of the ball. What can they do with the ball? Can they get enough scores? Kerry are good. We all know the skillful players that Kerry have. Can their defenders get up the field? Can the midfielders go on the front foot? And can the forward line cohesively work together and get enough scores consistently through that first half without any, I suppose, bad patches? You know, if they do that, then, you know, they're in with a chance. But, I mean, again, I keep coming back to it. Is there anything to point against Dublin? It's very, very difficult to see it, you know.
Senan, the Dublin Mafia, you're going to play it down.
Yeah, play it
Kerry's
down.
tradition, just can't count against it.
Well, there's more credibility in what the lads are saying because they've been there on the pitch with them, you know. So, but for what my tuppence is worth, and after studying, I suppose, the Dublin team hard over the last 10 years, you can't go against form, you know. And I think on any other year we'd say this is loose talk that could hurt Dublin, but I don't think it would, because they've done the retention of an All-Ireland, they've done the 3 in a row, they've done 4, and now 5 is just another game for them. And I do actually believe that what will give Kerry a bit of hope is that second half, I think, against their own. It was a 113 to 9 points. They were 5 down at half time, and they reeled in probably the best defensive unit that's out there in a different game. So that is in them still. And that might frighten us in Dublin a little bit, because it is a different forward and we're coming up against. This is a different final on loads of different layers. The history's going to be made, and that's been the narrative coming into this. But I just think that Dublin had the ability to ratchet up the intensity for the 10-minute spell and hit the scoreboard hard. And if Kerry can't manage that storm, then Dublin could beat the spread. I think the spread is 6 points. If they can manage that storm for that 10 or 15 minutes, then put the doubts into Dublin's heads. And I don't want to go on too much, but I am going on too much. I'm in 1982, some of the Kerry players, they talked about doing things differently, you know, players doing things differently. Maybe the 5 in a row just seeped onto them on the park, you know, looking at the finishing line and saying, oh, this is something different.
So Kerry need to put themselves in a position that Dublin actually have those thoughts with 10 minutes to go.
And a sucker punch, you know, that could be the Tommy Walsh. Wouldn't that be unbelievable? Because I think Tommy's dad played in that 82 final. Wouldn't that be something?
I think Seamus Darby went 10 years between playing an All-Ireland final at Croke Park.
There you go, yeah.
Maybe it is written in the stars. Who knows? Lads, thanks a million. You've all looked the part. You've upped the game, I think, on Tomás O'Shea for the Sunday game. I'm thinking Dickie Bowe in a top hat is the only way. Do you think will this work for me at a Leicester picnic this afternoon?
And a pair of wellies.
Yeah, I'll rock up. Perfect. We've been here with thanks to Benetti Menswear, Ireland's leading menswear provider. Check out benetti.ie. It is our traditional, and we love this after this morning on the eve of the All-Ireland final. Lads, best of luck over the coming seasons as well. I'm sure we'll be chatting to you a lot in Senan. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Best of luck.